Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of BrainScratch Searchlight. I'm your host John Lorden, and today we're going to be looking into the case of Madison Scott. Now, I was contacted on YouTube by her mother, Dawn Scott, and basically she was asking for my help to help raise awareness to this case. I was very surprised that once I started looking into this case, I could see that there was a ton of media around this case. There is an episode of 48 Hours that about half of it is dedicated to this case. There's even an independent documentary that's been made about Madison and her story. But that just goes to prove what type of family we're dealing with here. These people are extremely dedicated. They're very concerned about Madison, and they want to find out what happened to her just over 5 years ago. So we're going to start here on the Facebook page, and this is a post actually from her mother, Dawn. Miss you so much, Maddie. Who's keeping you from us? And we can see we've got a broken heart and an angry face emoticon, as well as a picture here of Madison. And you know, I don't think the emoticons can quite convey the sense of frustration and loss that her mother must be going through, but I have to say that in all of the footage that I've reviewed of both her parents actually speaking and working on this case, it is extremely inspirational. I'm sure that they have ups and downs just like the rest of us, but they seem driven in such a way that really makes me want to help them. And I'm sure if you look into the footage, you will get that same feeling. These are people that care a lot, and they are doing an immense amount of work in terms of keeping this exposed. As a matter of fact, if you look through the rest of this feed, and these are recent, these are all as of just July 29th. I mean, we're talking a handful of days ago. But a typical occurrence on this Facebook feed is for people to find posters of Maddie that are still posted and send pictures into this Facebook group. There are other people talking about that they are still putting up posters. Here we got a shot of a poster. It's pretty amazing to see that this community is still rallying behind this, and that the posters are reaching outside of the home community that Madison lived in. So what exactly happened to Madison Scott? We're going to start with the family's official website about this for the details. So let's jump to madisonscott.ca. Madison Scott has been missing for 1,900 days. That's as of when I'm shooting this. So by the time you guys see it, if you're watching it as soon as it's posted, it'll be 1,901 days. From Hogsback Lake near Vanderhoof, that is in British Columbia in Canada, since Saturday, May 28th, 2011. They have contact information here. Of course, I will copy that, and it'll be in the description box below for anyone that might have some tips or information on what happened to Madison. Madison Scott is still missing after 5 long years. Let's keep the awareness going strong and spreading it near and far. She is described as 5'4", ginger-colored hair, 160 pounds, with a bird silhouette tattoo on her left inner wrist and a left nostril piercing. She was last seen at Hogback Lake on May 27th, 2011. It is 25 kilometers northeast of Vanderhoof, BC. Once again, there is contact information there. And I have to say, in terms of the family websites that I've seen built up around a missing person, this one has a ton of information. This is almost an example of what you should do if you're ever faced with this tragedy and you need to keep the information centralized and shareable so that you can keep awareness raised to it. They have one of the most detailed media sections that I've seen, where pretty much every major article talking about this case is listed. I can tell you, after looking through many of them, that you're essentially getting the same story over and over and over. But if you look at the time periods, that's what's important. I mean, they're just constantly getting this word out time and time again, year after year after year. They have special events that they do to keep awareness raised around this. The next listing here on their main page is showing some photos of what they call the Maddie Poker Ride, which is pretty cool because they get people to, you can either walk, you can ride a horse, or you can take an ATV, and you are essentially going around the lake area where she went missing. but then they also have a poker tournament that's kind of coupled up with that. I just think it's a great way to get the community to come back out year after year and help keep searching for Maddie. And they've also posted a video here pretty recently called Bring Her Home. Very touching video, and if you do search for Madison Scott on YouTube, you will find that there are many videos. Unfortunately, there is an adult entertainer that also uses the name Madison Scott, but if you look around those results, you will see that there are many people that really cared a lot about Maddie and have made tribute videos, as well as a very well done documentary that's actually hosted at the same channel as this one. It's called Faith, Love, Hope, Find Maddie. There's only 3 videos there, but I'm including a link to this in the description box below so you can check them out. And I highly, highly recommend that you watch The Vanishing of Madison Scott. It is a very well done documentary about this case. I think it is centered a bit on the family and the it goes and talks to the investigators a little bit, but it is not an investigative documentary. I didn't find that it asked very many difficult questions of the people it was interviewing. It's a super nice tribute to her. Outside of that, it will give you kind of the basic details of the story, but there are some other details that I found in like the 48 Hours episode that we'll be talking about. In short, the story is that she was going to a birthday party. This had been posted on Facebook that they were going to have a party near the lake here. Apparently she was going under the presumption that other people were going to be camping there with her. At the very least, she had a good friend of hers that was going with her. I can bring up a picture of her real quick here. Her name is Jordy Balduke, and she becomes a bit of a controversial figure in all of this, mainly because she decided to leave the party and leave Madison that night. Apparently a lot more people showed up than Jordy was expecting. I've seen counts, it's somewhere around 50 or just under 50 people. Jordy says that many of them were people that they knew, but there was certain people they didn't know. Everyone was drinking, things were getting a little rowdy. Somehow Jordy had been pushed and didn't land in a fire, but somehow bumped into the fire that was going on. I think she was upset. I don't think she was critically injured or hurt in a very serious way, because I haven't found any reports to say that she sought medical attention, but she was upset enough that she wanted to leave the party. Her boyfriend was there and drove her home, and they did ask Maddie if Maddie wanted to leave with them, but Maddie had already set up her camp. She had her tent there. She also had her truck parked very nearby to where her tent was, and Maddie decided that she was going to stay. The party goes on until somewhere between like 2:45, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when the last of the partiers leave, and essentially they leave Maddie out there alone. And that really bothers me in a few ways. Even if there's someone that I don't know, if I know that they're staying out there alone and they are a young girl that is 20 years old, I would probably heavily suggest that she doesn't stay there. I might help her pack up her tent if she needed help with that. I might give her a ride home. There are just so many different things that I see that could have been done if there was some good, caring people there. And it's tough because you're talking about people that are very young, although from what I've seen, you had partygoers that were between 20 and 25, and apparently there were some people even up to the age of 40 that were there. I find it very tough for someone that age to have left this situation knowing that this girl was going to stay out there alone, but somehow they did. Jordy, the next morning, was feeling bad about leaving her friend out there and came back at approximately 10 a.m., saw that the tent was still set up, but couldn't find Maddie anywhere. Her truck was still there. The truck was locked. She could see that her purse was inside the truck. She looked into the tent. She says that she noticed that everything looked like it had been pushed over to the side of the tent, but she just thought that possibly Maddie was out walking or something and she had missed her. She leaves. I'm a bit fuzzy here, but I believe she contacted Maddie's parents at this point, just to let them know that that she didn't see her when they went back, or when she went back, when Jordy went back to the campsite. The parents know that Maddie, she is a bit of a tomboy. She's pretty athletic. She's pretty experienced in this type of thing, so they don't instantly kick on into worrying about this very much. That night, Saturday night, the party resumes, and apparently gets up to 150 people that are there on Saturday night, but no one has seen Maddie through all of this. The following morning, her parents go out there to try to find her. They find that the tent is actually flattened. I still don't know how that happened. I saw in a clip on the 48 Hour special that they actually have a board where they're kind of keeping track of everyone that was at the first party and questions that they have. They blurred out the names on the questions they have, but I did catch that one of their questions was, why did someone, they had it blurred out, so they obviously have a thought of who did it, knock down the tent or flatten the tent. And what's really interesting about that is Jordy goes back on Sunday with them to go looking for Maddie, and Jordy finds her jewelry, several rings of hers as well as an earring, basically at the entrance to the flattened tent. So Jordy has received a lot of criticism about how she handled the situation. Of course, in social media, people are blaming her for leaving Madison there. I think that's a very understandable thing. I honestly have to wonder about her intent to have stayed there in the first place. She has a boyfriend. You're talking a girl in her early 20s. From the footage I've seen, she still even seems a bit immature for her age. So I just find it really tough to believe that she was ever intending on staying out there with Madison. Now, was Madison perhaps meeting a boy? It's weird. I remember doing trips like this when I was young. If I was going with my girlfriend with another friend of mine, he was bringing his girlfriend. You know, you would do it like a couple's adventure type thing. It would be kind of weird for me to bring my girlfriend and my other friend go out there, and then me tell my girlfriend, well, you go home, I'm going to stay out here with my buddy. That might be more likely to happen at this point in my life, now that I've been married for a number of years. But particularly in your early 20s, if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, the mentality of that gives me some trouble. Outside of that, if you watch the interviews with Jordy, some people think that she contradicts herself a little bit. Her story seems to change around a little bit. In particular, in the 48 Hours footage, in this clip or clips around this interview, her attitude just seems kind of crappy for this being a missing persons case. She seems a bit self-centered, a bit more concerned about her image and all this. I know that happens to people. I've seen this in other cases where they get kind of battered by social media and they almost go into a self-protection mode, and they kind of get jaded. And I do feel like, I think that she's gone through that, and I think that she represents that a bit in this footage. However, maybe you guys should check it out for yourself and see. Do I think that she had something to do with it? I'll tell you, outside of the problem of believing if she was going to stay there that night or not, I have a little bit of a problem with the time frame going on around this. She leaves the party somewhere around between 1 and 2 a.m. that night, goes home with her boyfriend, comes back out at 10 a.m. the next morning, finds the tent still up, but she doesn't find the rings at that point. She doesn't find the earring at that point. And then she disappears. 150 other people go out there, party in the same area. None of those people are noticing that, there's a tent site already set up there, or looking at the entryway and saying, hey, someone's rings are on the ground. 150 people. And then the following Sunday, she's the one to discover those rings in front of the entryway to the flattened tent. Didn't she use that entryway when she checked on Madison the day before? I have a ton of questions that I would love to sit down with Jordy and ask her. But quite honestly, the sense that I get in terms of her maturity level, I don't know that I would get very good answers even if I sat with her. So I would definitely understand the backlash she's seeing from social media. I would understand if Maddie's family doesn't feel great about Jordy in terms of what she did that night, and maybe even the interviews that she's conducted after that. Quick thank you to Webslueths. I've been reviewing several of their pages on this case, and they have a great picture here of Maddie I just wanted to share with all of you. And one of the other things that came up when I was watching the documentary, there is a friend. First of all, the documentary is very cool about showing how the community rallies around this. And apparently, her hometown is pretty small, only about 5,000 residents. But you have someone that has a helicopter all of a sudden donate his time and go searching for her. Someone else that has a boat with sonar equipment donates his time and goes searching for her. Now, in that documentary, they don't talk too much about the official Royal Canadian Mounted Police investigation. They do talk to them a little bit, but they don't talk a whole lot about what they had done in terms of looking for her. So I did bump into an article, thank you to Webslueths, about additional divers that looked for her as well. And I just wanted to verify that someone else had looked for her besides the guy that had the boat, because the sonar technology that he was using as he demonstrated it in the documentary, not that it's flawed, but I think it could be extremely difficult for someone to use that while he is essentially, boating around at the same time. There could be things that he could miss. If you're looking for the shape of a human body, depending on how it could have fallen or how it could have turned, it might not look like a human body when all you're seeing is a little silhouette, basically a little shadow of items that are on the bottom of the lake there. So I was a bit concerned that did they really search the lake properly? According to this article, an RCMP dive team was scanning the water at Hogsback Lake Friday with eyes open for Madison Scott. They were also using sonar, and at this time they're saying that they'll be out there for 8 to 9 hours. I know the guy in the boat was out there for 10 hours, so is that the same as, dredging a lake or something like that? I don't know. I don't know enough about those types of search procedures to know if they did as much around the lake as they could. However, based on the conditions of this story, and knowing that they had hundreds of volunteers searching the local area where she was, they looked for all kinds of different abandoned buildings. They looked into those. Nothing really popped up around any of that. They've been searching for, you're coming up on 5 years now where you have people that are still going out occasionally and searching, letting the family know, hey, instead of going on vacation, we're going to go search for Madison. And this is somewhat close to a bit of a famous case called the Highway of Tears, which apparently there is, let's jump to the Wikipedia on it real quick just to give you a bit of a primer. The Highway of Tears murders is a series of murders and disappearances of young women along the 450-mile section of Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert, British Columbia. So people are wondering, is this case related to the Highway of Tears? As a matter of fact, the 48 Hours episode is titled Highway of Tears and talks, the second half of it is about a different case and then a few cases related to the Highway of Tears. I'm not sure if lumping Madison's case into this Highway of Tears phenomenon is, I don't know if it really helps or hurts the case. Personally, I get a feeling that it doesn't really help her case as much. I think that, is it related to this? Well, what is the Highway of Tears? We have noted that, yeah, there are somewhere between 20 and 40 women that for some reason have been murdered or gone missing in this area. Apparently it is an area very popular for hitchhiking. They have now posted signs all over it saying don't hitchhike, you don't want to become a part of the Highway of Tears. We know that she was not hitchhiking, she had a truck. There's no reason for her to do that. And several of these cases have been solved and attributed so far to what appears to be 2 separate serial murders. I think that the Highway of Tears is a spot where, and you're talking about 450 miles, first of all, so that is a large area. And because of how dense the brush is out there, people that are constantly coming and going through there, I think the risk associated, particularly with hitchhiking, is just a bit amplified in that area, and that's why you have this many cases, 20 to 40, starting in the late 60s through currently. So I did want to mention that, if it helps bring publicity to Madison's case, like it did with the 48 Hours episode, I see that as somewhat beneficial. But I've looked into enough of these kind of super theories where I get the feeling that once you start lumping all these cases together, people that want to come and actually learn about these cases have a hard time, because the details of the individual stories no longer apply. It just mashes into the parts of those stories that match this super theory. It's kind of a weird side effect that I've noticed. I don't think it's just an internet thing. I think it's more tied to just folklore and how stories come together and how they're retold, and they kind of change every time they're retold. So personally, I don't think Madison is part of this phenomenon. Sure, she was at a place that is close to that highway, but if you look at this in terms of a theory, she doesn't seem to be fitting the mechanics of that theory for me personally. Now, people on Webslueths and on Reddit as well are wondering about the rings and the earring. Why did they come off? Her keys and her cell phone are still missing. Apparently those are with her. So why would she have taken these rings off? Was she trying to leave some type of indicator that she was in trouble, so she had taken those rings off? Was the person that was taking her away worried that those were identifiable, so they took the rings off and left them there, but for some reason they didn't leave her cell phone or her keys? Kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. If you think about there being 150 people there on Saturday night, is it possible that her cell phone was left in some area where someone pocketed it, took it and tried to resell it or something? I certainly think that's somewhat possible. Her family notes that her cell phone seemed to shut off in the middle of the day at Saturday at some point, so either ran out of juice or something, but was essentially going directly to voicemail. So it's one of those things. Does this feel like one of those stories where someone gets intoxicated and slips into the river or the lake? When you consider the cell phone activity, it kind of works against that theory. If she, if 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning she got up and she had to go to the bathroom and she slipped into the lake, and her cell phone was with her, it probably would have shorted out at that period and you wouldn't have had it ringing into the next morning. So, and quite honestly, I think that they would have found her if that was the case. Is this something where she went off into the woods and got hurt in some way and no one has been able to find her since in the woods? With the amount of searching that they've done out there, with how much time that has passed, and when you look into these other cases and see how, not quickly, but how within relatively decent amounts of time they are able to find other bodies of missing people that have gone missing in this same area, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that she is out there. Is it possible? It certainly is. Do I think it's probable? Not really. Now we're going to jump over to Reddit for another little twist on a strange theory. Unfortunately, they deleted their name, so I can't give them credit, but from what I've heard from friends who know the family, Madison Scott's parents believe, or did at one time, that there was a connection. Apparently they suspected that Bjornson owed drug dealers money, which resulted in Scott's eventual death in an effort to coerce payment from him. But with Bjornson's murders being charged earlier this year, I have no idea if that is still believed, especially as additional details surrounding his murder are now coming to light. So who is Bjornson? Here is a picture of him and another article, which you can check out in the description box below, which gives details about what happened to him. But essentially, after Madison disappeared, he was murdered, and he was at least friends with Madison. Some people seem to think that maybe they were a little more than friends. I can't really find any info to confirm or deny that. But the authorities don't believe that these are connected. I don't know why. No one's really given a good explanation why these aren't connected, and I think it's kind of tough to rule that out when we don't really know what happened to Madison. But as you heard from the Reddit comment, it seems like the people that did this to him have been found. So I think that a lot of the questions in his case have answers, where unfortunately in Madison's case we don't quite have them yet. And outside of the Highway of Tears theory, we even have a website called Sasquatch Chronicles who retells Madison's story and ends their article with, "Could Sasquatch be the killer?" As you can see, there's theories all over the place on this case. So what does it boil down to? I think first off, you have to consider the possibility of something, what I would consider a natural occurrence happening to her getting hurt somewhere, her possibly being in the lake. I think there is a bit of a small chance that those are true. Any possibility that she ran away? I don't think so. She left her purse behind in the locked truck, hasn't used her cell phone, took her keys, did not take her vehicle. Of course, you could theorize that maybe there was someone that came and picked her up. As a matter of fact, I've heard comments from the authorities in this investigation saying that they do think that she was taken away somewhere in someone else's vehicle. So when you start considering that, what about the partygoers, the 50 people at the party? Well, apparently the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have conducted a ton of polygraph investigations, and they are saying that they have ruled every partygoer out. I have a little bit of trouble with that only because I don't know that I trust the validity of polygraph investigations, especially when it's used as a tool to rule people out. I have a bit of a problem with it because it is so easy to research how to fool polygraph machines nowadays. I saw a show, I think it was called Hacking the System, if I remember right, where the host literally trained himself to beat a polygraph machine and did it on the show. And I've heard it come up time and time again. In recent media, for some reason in particular, there are methods to beat these machines. So would it be very difficult for someone that had something to do, in this case, to beat a polygraph? Some people might say it's difficult, but certainly not impossible. And it's weird because I heard on a few different interviews where the investigators were saying, well, we've polygraphed these people, so we've cleared them. I don't think that really clears them necessarily, not in my book. There's something I feel about the potential for someone to have come back after the party was over that night. Maybe someone that was noticing her earlier, maybe they were getting along, maybe he had planned on coming back after the other partygoers had left or something along those lines. Maybe he even came back to take her somewhere and that she was agreeing with. So there's certain things about the story, and in particular about how the campsite was found the next morning, that lead me to believe that, first of all, there's really no sign of a struggle. Jordy does say that some of the things appear to be pushed to the side in the tent. That's really the only thing outside of the rings being found on the ground that might say that there was some type of struggle, but you don't have any type of blood or materials like that being found. Admittedly, signs of a struggle in terms of footprints or marks in the ground and stuff, it's going to be very difficult to find those when you had a huge party happening there that night and no one's really investigating it until the following day. But for at least the information that I've reviewed, it doesn't seem like there was a struggle at the local campsite, which kind of leads me to believe that she might have left on her own volition. Is it possible that someone came and threatened her in some way and forced her to leave, possibly with a weapon of some kind or by gunpoint? Certainly, and that would have minimized aspects of a struggle as well. But Jordy is a big mystery piece in this for me, because she is our main indicator for her not being there, for Maddie not being there on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And then that weird piece around, she looks in the tent, she notices the stuff in the tent, but is she standing on the rings while she's looking in the tent? She doesn't notice that the rings are literally at her feet in terms of the entryway to the tent. I just have trouble with that, and maybe my mind is still caught on the case I reviewed for BrainScratch last week, but it seems to me that someone could have planted the rings and the earring there to send some type of weird message about Madison, maybe being abducted. Maybe that was the intent, to drop those items there to provoke people into that thought for some reason. I don't know. Jordy is a very big mysterious piece in this to me. The other possibility is this is someone completely unrelated to the party. Maybe they're a Facebook stalker. Maybe they're someone that was knowing this party was going to go on, some type of outsider, someone that watched from the woods as this party wound down and then saw an opportunity and took advantage of it. I don't know. But outside of all that, I truly hope that Madison is alive somewhere. If she is, I'm fairly certain that she's being held captive in some way. But these cases do happen occasionally where that's exactly what happens. Women are sometimes taken, held captive in strange locations, but at least they have a chance to come out of that and to rejoin the world and to live their own life. I hope she's out there somewhere. This case really touched me, and once again, Dawn, thank you so much for reaching out to me and letting me know about this. And I hope that myself and my community of awesome brain scratchers, that's all you guys, can do something to help the awareness stay raised to this. So what can you guys do? Share this video, share the websites that are in the description box below. Outside of that, you can also donate to the cause. Here on maddyscott.ca, there is a donate tab that uses PayPal, and I can say on behalf of me and in particular my Patreon supporters, thank you guys. We have donated $50 to Maddie's family to aid them with this search, and if you realize the cost in this thing, you know $50 is a drop in the bucket, but we're hoping that it will help them print some more flyers, make some more bumper stickers, keep those materials out there, and hopefully someday Maddie will be brought home and given the proper respect that she truly deserves. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks channel.